Hey out there in podcast land. It's John Odom. I'm here with Mark Card. Mark, how you doing?
Ahoy, I'm doing pretty good.
It's time for the latest episode of Open World Chat, your favorite podcast where we talk about all kinds of things geeky and get a little kind of lefty progressive too and put it all into a big mushy mix and call it a podcast, by God. And we do a fine job, don't we?
Yes, I think so. For a clever imitation of a podcast, we do quite well.
Right on, right on. So today we're going to talk about cursed productions, which you'll hear a few. You'll hear a couple terms. You'll hear the term development hell. You may
Yep,
hear the term production hell, and you'll also probably hear some about hell because there'll be some hell involved too, which we'll get to.
yeah, there
But
definitely is some hell involved too.
I bet I know what you're thinking of. I bet it's the same stuff I'm thinking of, but we'll get to it. Mark and I don't coordinate this stuff. We just like, hey, all right, we'll meet in a couple of weeks and talk.
Yep,
Um, Used to be I'd never prepare, but our topics have gotten in depth enough that I have to actually do homework. So, it's kind
it's
of
my
like
fault.
work. Yeah, well, we've gotten away from the guest thing. More than a
Yeah,
year ago, this was so guest driven. So we'd get a guest in there, or you were a guest a couple times
yep,
when it was Jim and I, and we could get the guest going and bounce off the guest, and we didn't need to know nothing. It was it was cool. But now I have to sound intelligent. God,
Ah.
God damn it! It is your fault. I do blame you.
I'll take the blame. That's okay with me.
So, Mark, what do you think of when you think of a cursed production? What does that mean to you before we get into
Oh,
specifics?
it means either the studio doesn't want to do it, and there's a good script and a possible, good cast that's waiting in the wings. It means, uh, like my friend Ron has this great script he wrote. It's based on a local crime here in our hometown that happened when we were in high school. But yet he can't get anybody to make the movie. I mean, this script was on the blacklist. And for
Mhm.
those of you who don't know what the blacklist is an annual list of the best scripts in Hollywood, which were not picked up and produced.
Mhm.
And so, it could be that. It could be you can't find a director that's gonna do the project properly. There's a whole lot of different things that could cause your production to be held up
Mhm.
for a short or a very, 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 very long time, as we're going to see with some of this stuff.
Yeah, if you're trying to make this movie yourself, it's that much more difficult. The studios, of course, will go around and hoover up a lot of good looking scripts and just put them on the shelf, and they may or may not ever come to anything. But it's all different flavors of hell, I suppose.
Yes.
As opposed to, at least this is how I was reading it, production hell. Talking about development hell as being the hell where you just can't get the movie going.
Right.
It can't get out of its development phase. And
Yeah.
then production hell will be like maybe the movie's being produced. Maybe it's endless rewrites and reshoots and, directorial changes and this, that, and the other thing. That can be its own kind of hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. And we've
Well, I
got,
mean, it just depends on your perspective too. If you're a producer and you've got the script lined up and you've got the cast lined up and you've got the funding lined up, but for some reason the studio just doesn't want to make the movie, then you're going to be frustrated for a long time.
yep, yep.
So,
Yeah, I wrote a couple scripts once. Nobody liked them either. They weren't very good though.
yeah, that's one kind of writing I don't really understand um, is screenplay writing. I just don't get it. So I wouldn't even try.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun. I recommend it. I recommend it just for the experience because it's a different. If you're a writer, it's just that it's a different kind of writing, and it's nice to stretch yourself. It's nice to be so focused on the dialogue, and
Yeah, I'm
nothing else.
sure.
It's fun, but well, that's a digression. I'm going to cut out. How boring was that? Um,
No, not boring.
well, you were looking at some development hell movies. Is there one that before I just say tell me anyone, tell me one that makes you sad. Tell me one that you want to see.
There's a couple. We're going to start with At the Mountains of Madness. You know how I feel about H.P. Lovecraft stuff
Yeah, yeah,
and
for sure.
how hard it is to make into good movies.
Hmm.
But this one's crazy. They've been working on it since 2006. And geez, who's both? co-author of this script and wants to be director.
Oh, geez, I don't know. I don't know about this production or lack
Guillermo del
thereof.
Toro.
Oh God, now it does ring a bell, actually.
Can you imagine a better uh, director for an H.P. Lovecraft movie? I mean, the
No.
guy understands chaos. He
Mhm.
understands, difficult production. He understands how to make things which are fairly, I don't know, ethereal, scary as hell.
Yeah, and his
And
visual, his eye,
yes,
for art, for cinematic art it is itself somewhat Lovecraftian, but it's also unique.
well,
It's
plus he knows how to get productions done.
right.
Um, where there's
He,
all kinds of crazy things. So in 2010, they said, "Oh, well, we're going to make a 3D version of this, and James Cameron's going to be a producer, and Tom
uh,
Cruise is going to be the star."
what? No,
Well, the thing
really?
is, those are some big guns behind the production. What the hell happened?
Well, maybe it was just such a bad fit because it's kind of obgefucked, man.
I don't
That's,
know. We'll see. But the studio said we're not going to do it because Del Toro wanted the project to be an R-rated movie.
God, kind of have to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how do you make that a PG-13 movie? And so,
Well, at that particular one, yeah, I'm thinking, a lot of, we tend to remember a lot of the most extreme stuff about Lovecraft, but a
yeah,
lot of his work was, it was simmering, atmospheric. So, you could make one that's not R-rated, but I think if you were going to go, I think you go with the R, you know.
yeah. I mean, I just, you want to be able to explore that side of his productions. But
Hmm.
so then it flipped to being a Netflix movie. And Netflix movie aren't necessarily those movies aren't necessarily lower cost productions,
Right.
and they've made some stuff which is pretty high end and
Hmm.
and
Oh,
well
yeah,
funded and big scale.
for sure.
Uh, but then so they rewrote the script to make it smaller in scale, but also according to this, weirder.
Oh,
So
well,
evidently the script wasn't weird enough for
well,
a
weirder than a Tom Cruise, James Cameron one. Yeah, I hope so.
exactly.
That sounds pretty
So
vanilla.
then once they got that going, Guillermo del Toro said, "Yeah, Tom Cruise is too old for this movie."
It's too Tom Cruise for
And
this movie. Oh my God.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. But I'm willing to give him the potential of doing something that's weird.
I
He
like
has been
him.
known occasionally.
I don't dislike the
Well,
guy. I mean, I like a lot of his movies, but no.
the thing I think about Tom Cruise is, and stay with me here, he's not. I think he's a mediocre to good actor, but he's more of a movie star than he is an actor.
No, I can dig that. I hear you.
And I think there are some movie stars that aren't great actors. And then you've got guys like Harrison Ford, who is a bona fide movie star and a great actor.
Hmm.
But I think Tom Cruise falls more into the movie star category, although people who like Magnolia will tell me, "Oh, but you got to watch Magnolia." Yeah, you do, but yeah, no.
Oh, I,
Uh,
th I think he's a perfectly good actor. I just think he's limited, and I think he's also, yeah, he's movie starified. So you look at him, and you're going to see Tom Cruise, and that's
right.
that's unfortunate for a lot of these big name actors. They get them who don't necessarily deserve it. They get themselves in these situations where it's hard to see past the actor you're looking at, and he's definitely one of them. He's turned in
And
a
some
few
people do
great
that.
performances. He's
Some actors do that better than others.
Mhm.
Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson in every movie, but he's not.
That's
And
true.
Nick and Nicolas Cage is always Nicolas Cage in every movie he ever does, even when he doesn't want to be.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one, but maybe we should have a whole Nick Cage episode.
Well, don't get me wrong, I like Nick Cage, and one of his movies is responsible for a friend of mine getting married to his wife.
Oh,
Um, A friend of
Sounds.
mine was working as an editor on that movie, and his now wife was a costume designer on the movie Bangkok Dangerous,
Mhm.
and that's where they met. They met in Thailand. So
Well, that's
anyway,
cool. Well, so
yeah,
what's
Nick Cage. Go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say what's the status of this film at this point?
It's dead.
Oh, it is dead.
Yeah,
It-
because then Del Toro said, "Well, we could make a stop motion film." Okay, you could, but
Okay, I'd watch that from
so
him.
so I would too, but it would be you and me and 100 other people. The thing is that you can tell in this particular development hell, it went from giant to Netflix size to stop motion. So you can tell how desperately Del Toro wants to make this movie, but it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Well,
So
the dude has a tendency to overreach. His name has over the years has been attached to a lot of things that people get
yeah,
excited about and they drift away. I mean, I guess the one that really jumps to mind that was the closest was the Hobbit movies. Remember, he was supposed to
yeah,
direct those, and you could still see a little of his visual influence in the Peter Jackson
yes,
versions, which but so he does do that. He does
yeah.
get a I mean, I think he's probably a big geeky fanboy at heart, and he I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. Calm down, dude.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I can see that a lot.
But yeah, so when I was thinking about these, well, a bunch of them came to mind. And let's stick with straight on production hell. Thinking of geeky stuff that I would have liked to see. Oh no, I just remembered one I didn't put on my list. Oh my God. Is the Uzumaki manga.
Okay.
Have you ever looked at this?
No, no.
It's well, we were talking about disturbing horror last week. This is
Yeah.
just disturbing as hell. It's a terrifying series. It translates to spirals, and
Okay.
it's a I've got the bound edition next to my bed, and I can't look at it half the time at night. It freaks me out so bad. But I'm not going to spend much time on this because I wasn't ready to talk about it, so I don't have my ducks in a row on it. But it has been such a challenge. There have been a couple fits and starts. This is a very popular manga about this. You you come to this town where people are seeing spirals there. There's spirals in the water, there's spirals in the clouds,
Hmm.
and just all these it has this really eerie claustrophobic feeling, and you get starting to see these spirals and everywhere it becomes turns into this really intense twisted body horror where people's eyes spiral, parts of their bodies do, their bodies twists into spirals. It's like they're everywhere, and it's like this curse, and it gets into your head, and there's just no getting away from it. And the person who died from being twisted into a spiral in a box, they cremate him, and the clouds turn into a spiral above. And oh man, it's disturbing. It's got a big cult following. Trying to get this thing done has been, there's attempts on the web, and finally, I believe it was oh shoot, there was a TV version that just came out recently. Finally did. Um, I want to say, well, shoot, I can't remember, but it was 2 seasons worth, and the first season came out. It was terrific, right? They nailed it. The curse is over. The production hell curse is over. But then the last part of it comes out, and the animation was terrible. It was all unfinished.
Oh, geez.
And what happened was they pulled the plug on it
Yeah.
halfway through. So they had the sort of rough work done, and they hadn't finalized it. So the decision was made, from the creators. God, I hope I'm not getting this wrong. Um, to go ahead and put out what they had,
Yeah.
just so it would be out there. But even then, it's like the curse followed them even into production. This was
Wow.
seriously cursed. So the curse is still in play to a lot of the fans. It's like this thing just can't get made. And it's the kind of thing that's got to be an anime. I mean, you could make a terrifying live action movie out of this, but live action would not do it justice. So
Right,
it's
right.
very, very disappointing to see it done so halfway. But anyway, so that's the first curse production that jumps into my head. Like I say, I wasn't ready to talk about it, but something you said made me think of it.
Well, one of my favorite movies from the 80s is Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Hmm.
You know, Bob Zemeckis,
Yeah, I haven't
same guy
thought of
that
that for
did.
a while.
Yeah. And almost immediately they started talking about doing a sequel, almost immediately. And we still haven't seen it. This one's been in the works for a long time, and they just couldn't figure out where they wanted to go with it. And the funny thing is that they had so many options, you know. The first iteration was they wanted to make something called Roger Rabbit, the Toon Platoon, where Roger is, you know, explores his golden age kind of origins and how he ends up meeting Jessica and how he ends up meeting uh you know, just different people along the way. And Jessica gets kidnapped and forced into doing pro-Nazi propaganda cartoons, and he has to go and save her with a Toon army. And so this sounded great, but it got canceled uh, because Steven Spielberg was working on Schindler's List,
Hmm,
and they didn't really want a movie coming out to satirize the Nazis at the same time Schindler's List was coming out. And
that's
so
strange.
they actually even made test footage of Roger hunting for his mother, and but it's never seen the light of day.
Either one.
Then they were going to do something that was then basically what happens is you get the digital revolution,
Mhm.
and nobody's really doing animation on film anymore except you know, the Japanese. And so that what they wanted to do was they wanted to switch it and have you know, Bob Hoskins as a ghost because he's passed away, and all the human actors were going to be motion capture instead of live action.
Mm.
And so technological changes uh, stabbed it. And then they were going to do one in 2009. Then they started talking about doing things like other remakes and other animated projects, which just got put ahead of it. Like they talked about doing another a remake of Yellow Submarine. They talked about doing a remake of, well, that not a remake, but they talked about doing the Nutcracker. And then you had the failure of this a movie called Mars Needs Moms, which is barely on my radar because I just really wasn't into. I was
Mars and
doing other,
Moms.
yeah, doing other stuff then. And then basically now, and I guess the last update on it was in 2018. Bob Zemeckis said he didn't think there was any way the studios were going to make that movie. So
Yeah,
I just think it went on too long, and now, you know, you're talking about the generation that would have seen it would be, you know, would you know, just be too old for it to you know, they're grandparents now,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so it's not, they just don't see it as a viable option anymore.
Well, I'm glad they're aware of that because you wouldn't want them to put something out just to have it be inadequate and bomb. Because I think that's done a lot. I think you see remakes of movies that no one's asking for just because some older director liked it a lot when they were a kid, but they have nothing else to add.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think I don't know if you saw the remake of Beetlejuice.
You know, I still haven't. It's funny that you
It,
mentioned that. It reminds me, I need to, it's on my list. Is it, well, not the remake, but the sequel, right?
the sequel, yeah.
Yeah,
The thing is it's fine. It's fine as a movie. It works as even a standalone movie, but you know, you just can't recapture the magic of
yeah.
seeing that for the first time originally. You know, Catherine O'Hara is at her peak then. Um, it's just this kind of weirdness that only really I think existed at certain movies in the 1980s, and it wasn't just what's his name, the director of Beetlejuice. Can't think of his name. The old guy
Oh,
sitting there
oh, Tim Burton.
watching
Sorry.
Tim Burton, yeah. And I think Tim Burton's Wednesday is brilliant. I think it's the best thing he's done in a very long time. It's a TV show, and I just don't think you recapture that magic.
I think it's rare. Yeah, I think unless you really well, I don't know, it's just dangerous to mess with properties like that, I
Yeah, I
think.
mean, look at every Indiana Jones movie after The Last Crusade.
Yeah, I didn't even love The Last Crusade, honestly. For me, to a point, it's every Indiana Jones movie since the first one.
Yeah. But no, I'm really a big fan of the third one. I like The Last Crusade, and I think it would have been great if they never did another one. And honestly, I think Harrison Ford would probably agree with me.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Except he did them. He brought on any criticism with
Well,
his
I think
eyes
it's
wide
interesting
open.
when he made when he made one of the Star Wars remakes, the one where they killed him,
Hmm.
uh, and then he did the sequel to Blade Runner.
Yeah, yeah, which was a great movie.
Yeah, it was a really good movie, but you couldn't
Hmm.
have made that movie without Denis Villeneuve, I don't think.
No.
I mean, he has a specific vision that really fits in with the whole aesthetic of that movie.
Yeah, yeah, and also made it his own. It was
Yeah,
that was a good flick. I know some people who like it better than the original. People whose tastes I value. I don't go that
yeah.
far, but I think
But
it was that good. Boy, we're way off the track though, aren't
the funny part that though
we?
was that some interviewer on the press tour asked Harrison Ford, he said, "Are you trying to go through all of your old properties and kill off the characters in every movie?" And he said, "Yep, pretty much." Anyway, so yeah, that's just a movie that I would love to have seen in 1992, and it just wasn't going to come about.
So I've got one that Um, not sure what number we're up to now. Not that I'm counting, but the next on our list, I was making my little list off the top of my head, Cursed Productions.
Hmm.
This. What does this mean? What is that? Da, da, da. And I asked my wife, who was across the table from me, I said, "So,
Sure.
can you help me with this?" I'm trying to think of every time I ask her to help me with something on the the podcast, she's like, "No, I'm not going to help you."
You're on
But
your own. This is your thing, dude.
right, exactly. Um, I said, "Can you think of any cursed productions?" And she pulled one out that I'd completely forgotten about. Does Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark ring any bells?
That's for sure.
I
Boy,
know,
talk
right?
about cursed. That was cursed from the moment it was conceived as a Broadway musical.
I know. And I remember used to hear so much about it because it kept this perpetual failure to launch. They kept having problems. They kept having these previews where
Yeah.
things would be halfway cut off and you'd piss off all the reviewers who wouldn't even get to see the whole thing. Things would get stuck. It was the biggest budgeted Broadway production ever, and it ran over budget. The thing is it's like the biggest financial disaster in Broadway history.
And people died in the production of it too.
Did somebody die?
Yes.
Oh, what happened? You tell
In
me.
rehearsals, somebody died from one of the stunts. I think that's right.
Oh, Jesus. Well, and I mean the director, the who started it, Julie Taymor she did The Lion King and has done movies here and there since. She seems like
Yeah.
an interesting vision for this stuff. She just went badly astray and she committed to the path. She got pulled off the project finally at one point, but it was unsalvageable. And the money that was lost is phenomenal. It Here I've got some stuff here. 182 performance preview period. They
Wow.
just couldn't get it going. A budget of 75 million. Um, it officially opened 2011 and closed for good January of 2014.
Yeah,
Um,
nobody was killed, but people were seriously injured.
yeah, nobody liked it either. It sounded, and it's a shame because I kind of think it sounded like there was some cool thinking in there. I don't think, I mean, it's easy. You hear these kinds of disaster production stories, and it's easy to sort of buy into sort of hindsight and go, well, of course it was going to suck. I don't think this one had to suck. I think it
No, I don't
was,
think it did either. And the thing is, it's just such a good premise. Spider-Man. It's just such a good premise. I mean, the story has really stood up. When was it? When did Spider-Man debut in the comics?
Oh, I should know this. I want to say 1964.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around a long time.
When was Amazing Fantasy 15? Now I got to look. I think I may have just embarrassed myself and told you the wrong thing. Amazing Fantasy. But anyways, I got to know. I got to know. Number 15, what year? Oh God, I'm way off. Jesus.
What
All
is
right.
it?
62.
Even earlier.
Hang my head in shame. Oh,
I wouldn't let
Lord.
it bother you.
I'm out of practice. I'm too old. I'm losing it.
I
Senility. I don't know. Too far
don't
from my
know if
roots.
you're Mick Jagger still at it.
Well, but that was one I definitely wanted to mention because I'm not a Broadway guy,
Yeah.
but being reminded of that turned a little light bulb on in my head because he used to hear so much about that. So that is a seriously, seriously cursed production. I'm going to bounce one more at you though
Yep.
before we get lost in it because this is the rare cursed production that emerged from hell. Now, not rare, I should say. You hear a lot about these cursed productions. They come out and nobody likes them.
Yeah.
Right, like the New Mutants movie is one that just sat on the shelf.
Right.
It got caught by it got caught by the pandemic, but it was already, spinning around, sat on the shelf forever.
Yeah.
People came out underwhelmed. Nobody saw it. Nobody liked it. Underappreciated movie, just for the record. It's a good superhero movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. But one that did go into a legendary hell and come out of it was World War Z.
Yeah. Yeah,
Actually,
that's true.
Brad Pitt movie, which had to go under rewrites, a complete reimagining of the final act. It sat up
Yeah.
there for a while. It had direction issues. They brought in Drew Goddard,
Yep.
Mr. Sort of geeky script doctor to fix it at the end. Um,
Well, plus, Joss Whedon protege.
yeah, right, right on. And what they ended up pulling out of it was a pretty good movie. It has nothing to do, or practically nothing to do with the book. But it
Well, what
was,
kills me is who wrote that book. Do you know who wrote that book?
I don't remember. I didn't read it.
Mel
Is it?
Brooks' son,
Oh, I did not know that.
Max Brooks. He wrote that movie.
Okay, and
I
he
mean,
did
he wrote the book, not the movie.
right, and it was a follow up to his previous book about manual of how to survive the zombie apocalypse or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know that part, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, Max Brooks wrote that.
I didn't know that.
So
Yeah.
I want to mention another one that we should have mentioned right off the top because we're
Mhm.
both such Marvel junkies. Blade.
Oh God, of course. I was like, what a Blade. Oh, then it weighed on me all at once. Right. We're
Yes,
not
Blade
getting
is
Blade.
it's lost.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's gone,
Oh,
but
it's gone. It's
it's right now
toast.
on indefinite hold because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get I saw Julia Louis Dreyfus
Yeah.
on
Say
an
that 10
interview
times fast.
on an interview today talking about press for the Thunderbolts, which she said that she thinks this is going to give audiences old school Marvel, like she didn't say this part, but like Iron Man Marvel. And she might be right about this, but I think what happened to Blade is because Phase 5 has been so chaotic. But how could it be anything but that? Because I mean, the previous phases that are culminated in the Infinity War saga are so tight and so good. And yes,
Mhm.
that we won't think about the third Thor movie or some other bad movies in that line, but
Yeah.
I think that just got lost. They're trying to find old school Marvel with Doomsday and I forget the name of the other one that's coming up, Secret Wars.
Hmm.
And I just think that's fallen by the wayside. And that's too bad because when I heard Mahershala Ali was going to be the guy who played the new Blade, I was really excited. That guy is a really great actor.
Well, he's the reason they were going to do it at all. I think he approached Marvel and said, "I want to play Blade, make a new Blade movie, and you've got me." And I think that's the genesis of it.
And this is a
Uh,
giant missed opportunity.
yeah.
Holy cow, that was great. Holy cow. Um, but it's just fallen apart more and more and more. I mean, they did a rewrite, or they were supposed to do a rewrite with Nick Pizzolatto, the guy who did True Detective on HBO.
Mm,
I mean, come on. Kevin Feige needs to get it together.
yeah.
I mean, if you're failing on a Blade remake with an actor of that quality,
Yeah.
you're falling apart. You're
Yeah.
falling apart, and they need to get this together because the first Blade movie it was just such a smashing adaptation of a Marvel property.
Hmm.
It was great,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it's kind of crazy, but I would really, I think you're right. I think it is gone, but I would
Yeah.
really like Blade to. I would like to see Blade with Mahershala Ali as the title character. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. And
Well,
unfortunately,
there's,
I think it's hurt his career too, because he's kind of put himself on hold.
yeah, you don't see much of him these days. I can't think of the last time I've seen him, actually. It's a shame because he's a talented guy. Hopefully he'll, oh God, is the last thing he was in, um, Alita Battling. I think that's the last thing I remember seeing him in.
Yeah. You ready for another one?
Sure, go for
Uh, this is a favorite movie of mine. It's from the early 60s. It's a Don Knotts movie,
it. God. Oh.
Incredible Mr. Limpet.
I, I,
I love that movie as a kid. The thing is now, if you go back and try to rewatch it, the again, you can't recapture the magic of that movie in the 60s. It's a live action slash animated film. But when you hear about who the possible leads were in the progression of this development hell, you just think, come on, again, come on. What are you guys doing? Right? So they were talking about the originally, of course, it was going to be Jim Carrey.
of course.
And in the 90s, late 90s, that
Hmm.
would have been perfect. And then they talked about doing it with Mike Judge as the director, and I think he would have put a good spin on that movie. I think he's
Hmm.
an underrated director. I think he's really good. I've seen a lot of his movies, and
Hmm.
he can go. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie Extract, it's hilarious.
I have not.
Um,
I'll check it out.
and they were talking about in another version later on, they talked about making Zach Galifianakis
Hmm.
in the lead role, and he would have done that too. In 2011, Richard Linklater entered the project.
Huh.
Nothing came of that. And then in 2014, they talked about doing it with John Hamm, Danny McBride, Sarah Silverman, Kevin Hart, Josh Gad, and Keegan Michael Key. They all had entered talks in the film.
Wow.
And then Linklater, oh my God. Ugh,
That's
what a
that
horrible mistake.
that's an odd
Linklater,
pick.
Linklater got out of that production to do his massive flop, although I think it's a decent movie, but it turned out to be a big flop sequel to Dazed and Confused, which ended up being called Everybody Wants Some.
Oh
And
God. There
man, that was
was
what?
there was that movie did exist, didn't it?
Everybody Wants Some, yeah, but it was terrible. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It was actually a pretty good movie.
Oh.
See, for me, I grew up in Texas. He's just a couple of years older than I am. Richard Linklater movies about Texas to me are documentaries. Dazed and Confused was exactly like high school for me,
Oh, that's
except by
funny.
the time by the time I got into high school, a lot of that hazing was just out.
Hmm.
Couldn't do that kind of stuff. But otherwise, the whole thing about football players having to sign a pledge that they're not going to drink or smoke weed, and
Right.
of course they're the first people to go, screw you, we're not doing that. Um, and just the whole kind of, you know, 14-year-old coming of age, being accepted kind of thing. That's a documentary. I mean, that's the way Texas high school was in the 70s.
Hmm.
And the sequel is kind of in the 1980s, and one of the characters grows up and he wants to play baseball for University of Texas. And so it kind of captures kind of the Texas era of renewed interests in things like fraternities because of uh, Animal House, and it just kind of recaptures a little bit of that, but it's not nearly as original and not nearly as good as Dazed and Confused.
Mm, yeah. Well, I thought you were talking about a sequel that you must have dreamed because I didn't know anything. I had no idea what you were talking about. But then I
Well, it
remembered
wasn't.
it
It
did
wasn't.
exist.
It wasn't really advertised as a sequel to it, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, no, I know the
And
movie you're
and
talking
that
about.
that's what Linklater said it was. But
Hmm.
he went on to make, things like Fatherhood. So, you know, anyway. But I would like to have seen that made. There's some other things that I found a list online of things that were in development hell, and one of them actually made it out of development hell, and I really don't think it should have, honestly.
No. Oh, what's that?
And yes, I'm about to be hated by a whole bunch of listeners, but
Oh,
the
good.
Ir the Irishman,
The Irishman.
Scorsese's Irishman, it took
Yeah.
forever. It took forever to make that movie. But like I said, I think it should have.
Mhm.
I don't think that movie, I think that's one of his worst.
We are going down the list of movies I haven't seen this week.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's educational for me. I can now I know to leave this one off my list.
It's it's more than 3 hours long.
Oof. You gotta
And
be good then. Because if you're not good and you can't hold people 3 hours, then you're just pretentious, and that's no good.
yeah, and you can tell this was a dream project for Scorsese, and he wanted to make it the best movie he can, but I'm just saying there's only so many mob movies you can make with uh Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. And
Apparently there aren't.
yeah, well,
Apparently there is no limit to the amount that you can
yeah,
make.
and you don't want to see guys like Joe Pesci and Bob De Niro go down the route that Boris Karloff went down,
Right, Bela Lugosi.
and do these really, really bad movies just to, keep your hand in, or just because you need money.
Hmm.
Uh,
The Liam Neeson, Nick Cage route. Well,
Well, I'll tell you the big person at this, and actually I think he's done this pretty well, is Hugh Grant. Have you
Hugh
seen a
Grant,
Hugh Grant movie lately?
he has reinvented himself.
He has totally reinvented
Yeah,
himself,
it's kind of great to see him back, actually.
and he's really, really good at playing the heavy.
Hmm.
He is. Did you see The Heretic?
Yeah, scary.
He kills it in that
Hmm.
movie. And you think to yourself, how is this guy making this movie when he's the bookstore owner in Notting Hill?
Right. Yeah.
And so he really, I mean, he's even really good. And I love he admitted why he did this movie. He said, I've got a lot of kids I have to pay for. He was good in the Willy Wonka remake, the Willy Wonka prequel
Right. Forgot about
as an
that.
Oompa Loompa. And who the hell would have thought
That's
Hugh
right.
Grant would be able to pull that off? But anyway, we were
I was
getting off
thinking I hadn't
topic.
seen him for a while, but that's right. He was there.
Yeah, he
Um,
was in The Heretic, and he was the Oompa Loompa in the
Oompa
movie.
Loompa.
And he's done a great job. But yeah, I really would like to have seen that. I mean, I really don't think that The Irishman should have been made.
Hmm.
I just don't think it's a very good movie. I think it's slow, it's plodding. There's a whole lot of question as to whether or not it's based on a book uh,
Hmm.
about whether he did any of these things, much less all of them.
Hmm.
And it's there's just too many Bob De Niro, Joe Pesci gangster movies.
Yeah, or at least Bob De Niro. Joe Pesci's he kind of came and went, but yeah,
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, he did it on purpose. I mean, he kind of
he was
said,
done.
I'm done making movies for a while. In fact, they brought him out of retirement to do this.
Dusted him off.
Yeah, well, no, he dusted himself off, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah, he dusted himself
As long
off.
as there's his own free will there, that's important. Well, I'm going to change this, slightly tweak the
Yeah, please do, please
s-
do.
spelling
I'm
of
getting boring.
cursed. No,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to capitalize the C in cursed.
Okay.
And I'm going to take us over a different path and talk about a couple movies, The Exorcist and The Omen,
Oh yeah.
which were supposedly actually cursed.
Literally cursed. Sure.
They were supposedly literally cursed because of series of strange accidents, deaths around their productions.
Right.
And I remember, you probably remember at the time because you're older than me, there was definitely hubbub about this. at the time. Let's see. I've got a list here that with the Exorcist. What was the story with that? Oh, there was a the special effects director and his assistant, special effects director John Richardson, died in a car accident that echoed a scene from the film. Ellen Burstyn had a serious spinal injury during a stunt gone wrong. There was a
Hmm.
fire on the set that damaged the soundstage, and that just fed into this whole and yeah, an actor, the actor who played Burke, the Burke Dennings in the film died a
Right.
week after the film's release, which is why I've never seen him in anything else, I guess. So yeah, and that was just that even fed more of a mystique, and you started hearing about other things that may or may not have happened on the set, and it got this whole demonic vibe going that then carried into The Omen.
Right.
And I think with The Omen, it was really all about 2 months before filming, Gregory Peck's son committed suicide.
Wow.
But they were both on planes, or Gregory Peck and the screenwriter were both on planes that were struck by lightning.
Oh, wow.
So that was a thing, though. That was a thing that you would hear about for a while,
Hmm.
and I think some people were legitimately freaked out about this, and they
Yeah,
legitimately.
I remember that barely. I mean, I was only 11 years old
Mhm.
when the stuff with The Exorcist happened. A lot of that stuff I think is either invented by Baptist preachers, uh, satanic panic stuff,
Mhm.
just to get people in churches. And I'm not really being ironic here.
No, of
Uh,
course not.
um, and then I think a lot of this was some of this might have been, guerrilla marketing before we knew about guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, oh, that's an interesting
You
thought.
want to talk about cursed production?
Yeah, bring it on.
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist. Yeah, I don't remember. I
Two
don't remember the details, but I do remember that's on that.
two of the actresses who played their kids died.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that bad. I just knew. I just
Yes.
had
The
it
girl who
ringing in
played the
my
older
head that
daughter,
Poltergeist was cursed.
the girl who played the older daughter, she was strangled to death by her boyfriend, by
Oh,
her
geez.
ex-boyfriend in her car.
Oh my God. No, I did not know this. I never read deeply. I've just seen it on lists.
And then the actress who played the little girl, she got sick and she was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease. And
Hmm.
then after that, she collapsed and died from cardiac arrest. They found out that she was had a congenital intestinal abnormality, and two other actors involved with the sequels died. Now they were under less, kind of difficult circumstances, but a lot of people involved with Poltergeist ended up dead just a few years after the first movie was released.
Wow.
So, again, this is the kind of thing that people talk about with cursed productions. I mean, I remember hearing that stuff at the time. It was, several years later, 86, 87, 88, when they talked about the actress who was murdered by her boyfriend. And then I remember hearing shortly after that the other actress died because they didn't know what really killed her, and so it was kind of a mystery. But yeah, I've heard of other cursed productions. Of course, one of the most famous one is the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, with what was his
Vic
name?
Morrow.
Vic. Okay, Vic Morrow. Okay, I get my Vics confused. Yeah, yeah, he died on set during
Yes,
filming, right?
decapitated by a helicopter.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to die in a Twilight Zone movie, being decapitated by a helicopter kind of seems a fitting way to do it. But the thing people don't remember is that there was a child actor who was killed in that too, a Vietnamese child actor. She was killed in the same crash.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that was such a big deal at the time. I remember that.
And I will tell you another great Rolling Stone. This is before the internet, but Rolling Stone did a long series where they had a reporter embedded in the production of Apocalypse Now. And talk
Apocalypse
about
Now is one that pops up as a cursed production. Well, there was a whole documentary about it.
they had a hurricane.
Right.
in the middle of the production. They had a hurricane. Martin Sheen had a near a near fatal heart attack when they were in the bush filming. It's crazy. I
Wow.
mean, whole sets were destroyed by the hurricane. They had to rebuild everything.
Wow.
And uh
Yeah, no,
Coppola,
it's kind of legendary. It's kind of legendary. Have you seen the documentary they made about it?
no, but the documentary is mostly based on the reports from the Rolling Stone reporter. And I was
Hmm.
in high school when this movie was being shot. So, and I subscribed to Rolling Stone. So I read every letter of that whole series. And it was just, it's ridiculous the number of things that happened on that production.
Yeah, that one's pretty legendary. That one's pretty legendary.
So
Um,
that one was badly cursed. And it was in development hell for a long time before that. I mean, it took excuse me, it took forever to get that movie made. It took forever to get that movie greenlit. And then once they got it greenlit, you had all these things go wrong with it.
yeah.
And the funny thing is this, I don't know if you remember remember that movie very well, but there's a scene in that movie where Dennis Hopper is talking about Kurtz,
Hmm.
the
Right.
the main character who's played by Marlon Brando, and he's just going on kind of like
Main character.
Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys, just babbling and babbling and babbling and babbling about how great he is and about Dennis Hopper was
Was
totally
he
messed up
tripping?
on totally messed up on acid, man.
Yeah.
Totally tripping. He didn't tell anybody he was going to drop it before that they started filming, and it just uh, it just turned into this. I mean, everything that could go wrong with Apocalypse Now went wrong, and yet it still is considered one of the best films ever made,
It's a
especially one
great
of the
movie.
best war films ever made.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's so good. And
Yeah.
I was lucky. I got to see the production. The original release has at the end credits about 30 minutes of napalm explosions as the credits roll.
Yeesh.
And so I got to see the version where we just kind of sat there and watched all these napalm explosions go off. And it's pretty trippy. It's if you were on some kind of altered, if you were in some kind of altered state when that was going on, it was
Hmm.
it was pretty amusing.
Um, well, I'm gonna change up our curse genre a little bit here, and I'm gonna okay, we're moving from cursed pre-production, we got cursed like demonic evil. We got
Yeah.
cursed production here, which you just gave us.
Yep.
I'm gonna give an honest to God actual curse. Okay. And
Okay.
it's nasty. And that's do you know anything about the making of The Conqueror?
No. Uh-uh.
The legendarily bad movie with John Wayne as Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Well,
no, no. I know the movie you're talking about, but I
yeah,
haven't seen it, and I've heard it's just awful anyway. Jesus Christ, who's going to make a movie with John Wayne where he plays a Mongol?
I know. It's crazy. I mean, there's whitewashing and there's The Conqueror.
Good God.
But the question that you would ask now is who's going to make a movie downwind of an above ground nuclear test site?
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's what
See, I
happened.
had no idea. That's crazy.
Yes. And they, I mean, you talk about the downwinders, folks who worked in, lived in these towns that were downwind of some of these sites before they had a sense of exactly what the dangers of radiation were and how persistent they could be and how,
Right.
long term the different types of cancers were. 41% of the cast and crew of The Conqueror came down with cancer.
Oh my God.
Many of them, including John Wayne, died. I mean, all kinds of different cancers.
Well,
That's,
John Wayne's lung cancer came mostly from his, six pack a day habit of cigarettes.
well, fair enough. That's probably true. But the producer of the film was, purchased all the rights. Well, who was the producer? Oh my God. Wait a minute. Producer, according to my notes, the producer was Howard Hughes. Is that possible? Am
It
I
is.
crazy? Oh, well,
It is
look at that.
definitely possible.
Huh. Anyways, purchased up all the prints of the movie to try to atone for it because it's out there. That's that this happened. This is not some
Ugh.
this is not really some mystery anymore. This is not
Yeah.
really questioned. These folks were way too close to nuclear tests and they got sick and they died. 41% is beyond cluster.
Oh yeah.
That's actionable. So that is a film that was, legitimately cursed
Yeah. No, that really was.
in a real meaningful way. Susan Hayward died of cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, 91. Here we go. 91 out of 228 cast and crew
Good God, that's almost
developed cancer.
half. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
They were 137 miles downwind.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a curse for you.
And boy, they knew nothing about that then.
No, no, they
I
really
mean, just
didn't.
the fact that they were doing open air nuclear tests.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So that's ugly. Ugly end to an ugly postscript to an ugly movie.
Yeah, that is no. That's you talk about whitewashing, it always makes me think of they're making this version of the Odyssey with Matt Damon as Odysseus. Blonde hair.
Though, it's got to be good, right? Because
I
it's
hope so.
Nolan. It's Nolan. We trust Nolan. Nolan can do no wrong.
Let me remind you that everyone has their Howard the Duck.
The one I haven't seen. Did you see Tenet?
No, I haven't. I can't
Okay.
watch spy movies. I know too much about intelligence.
Yeah, but
Uh,
it's time travel and everything too. So,
yeah, it's time travel. Yeah, I know, but it's still it's hard for me to go. That never happened. Never happened.
yeah, I've never seen it. That's the one I haven't seen. So I was going to ask you if you'd seen it, if it was his Howard the Duck, because I know a lot of people didn't like it. But anyway, I got to check it out. I digress.
A lot of
I
people don't like
digress.
a lot of people don't like Christopher Nolan movies because they're hard to follow.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's the reason why they don't like them. I will tell you this though, uh, I have a bone to pick with Christopher Nolan in Inception.
Oh, really?
I
Love
understand why he
Inception.
did this, but 4 or 5 times in that movie, they recap what they're going to do before they do it. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's get this plan straight. We're going to do this and this and this, and everybody knows what the plan is, right? Yes. Okay. 30 minutes later. All right. So we're going to do this and this and this. So everybody's on the same page, right? Okay. Yes. That goes on too long.
It is very exposition heavy. I do remember noticing that. You're absolutely right. And it's because of, well, you know why? Because it was so hard to track. There was so much going on. There was a lot of complexity in that movie, and they probably came from test screenings, things like that.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure
Yeah,
they did.
yeah,
And, but there's a point where you just have to let the audience go.
you have to. Yeah.
And the thing is, he wasn't afraid to do that at the end of Inception with the whole top thing. I'm just saying that it's one of those situations where you just want the director to just let it let it be, just leave it alone. And there's just too much explanation of how the Inception process is going to work.
Hmm.
It's just too much of it.
Yeah.
He doesn't. What's the other movie I was going to say that he doesn't do that in? He doesn't do that in Memento at all.
Hmm.
Memento, you're on your own. You're on your own. And that's what makes it such a great movie, is you are on your own to figure out what the hell is going on. So half of what you're doing in that movie is thinking of these things that could be explanations for it. I'll tell you another place that he let that have. He let that
Interstellar, you're
happen.
going to say, aren't you?
What?
You're going to say Interstellar, I bet.
No, I'm going to
No?
say The Prestige.
Oh, oh,
I
I love that movie. I forgot about that movie.
love that movie too.
Hmm.
And there were two movies that came out about Houdini at the same time, and I can never remember the other one. And that's because The Prestige was so much better.
Well, or not Houdini per se, but yeah.
Yeah. But um, yeah, the Prestige was so much better. But I just think there was too much of that. There's too much of that going on there. Man, I just keep taking us off on these stupid tangents.
No,
Sorry.
it's a tangent day. I'm doing it too. Every time you want
Yeah.
to get back on track, I start throwing at you. But that's all right. I got a few others I can go through, but I got the big one. So why don't you close us out with one that really that really sticks in your craw here?
Yeah, I think I've hit the major ones. There's some other stuff on here. They tried to make a Jetsons movie. I think that would be great. But again, the thing about the Jetsons movie is who the hell knows what the Jetsons are anymore?
Hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Well, the
and
the Gambit movie is one that just died finally once and for all. It was, Channing Tatum's passion project, and it's really interesting. You have these two sort of X-Men or X-Men adjacent passion projects from these two actors around the same time. You've got Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, and you got Channing
yeah,
Tatum and Gambit. And Gambit keeps almost happening. It is on the calendar for a while. It directors kept shifting on it. Gore Verbinski was attached to it at one point, and then it just waited too long, and then the Marvel scooped up Fox, and it went away. And there were a lot of folks actually looking forward to this movie because it had been, he had talked it up so much. It was such a sort of personal passion project. He always wanted to play this character. He's from New Orleans. He loves the character. And
yeah.
then they drop him in as sort of an Easter egg playing the character in Deadpool and Wolverine. And now they're bringing him up for Avengers Doomsday. So in
It's
a
going to be an Avengers Doomsday, and
yeah,
I think if the part is written right, that's going to get done.
I think it might. It's a backdoor way to bring us the character, and
Yeah. Well,
um,
and it's a different backdoor way than the way Ryan Reynolds did it with Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds used his own money to shoot scenes.
the test footage stuff, yeah, that
That's
was
right.
which
So
was
he was
almost
like,
exactly duplicated in the movie.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I'll tell you one that would have been good. That I'm surprised you haven't mentioned. Akira.
Oh God, Akira, yeah,
I mean,
that
they've been
has
trying to do a live action movie of that
for
forever.
forever. Waititi was the most
He's the most
recently,
recent
yeah.
iteration, but they talked about James Cameron, Stephen Norrington, the Hughes brothers, George Miller, Christopher
Mhm.
Nolan. They talked about all of those people, and it just has never made.
Yeah,
And
that's disappointing.
White Taika Waititi was attached to it, but then he canceled it or put it off to do Thor: Love and Thunder.
Right. Yeah. And it's back to square one. It's always back to square one.
It's always back to square one. I mean, for God's sake,
Yeah.
they've been working on that forever. But I can understand why they didn't get to it because um, what's the other one? The one they did a live action with Scarlett Johansson, speaking of whitewashing.
Oh, Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, now that's an anime I watched and I
Yeah, it's
thought
a good one.
it was great. I love that one a lot.
Yeah. Agreed.
And but Ghost in the Shell flopped with Scarlett Johansson in it.
Yeah.
And
They
I think that maybe made them rethink this.
I wonder. I mean, they tried to shoehorn in. You remember that they did try to shoehorn in an explanation as to why she was white?
Yeah, and that was terrible.
And it's like all you're doing is telling us that you
Yeah.
know you shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, no. And the thing is that I'm sure there's a Japanese actress who could have done that incredibly well.
Hmm.
But I suspect this is a studio thing where they said, well, we got to have a star attached to the project or it's not going to succeed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
To
For
which
sure.
I say Peter O'Toole. You know why I say that?
Because of Lawrence of Arabia, and nobody had heard of him.
That well, if you were a devotee of West End theater in London, you knew who Peter O'Toole was. But if you're somebody who only went to Hollywood movies, you had no clue. It was his first feature film.
Right.
I mean, come on. It's like Harrison Ford in Star Wars. I mean, yes, he'd been out there and he'd done a few movies, but
Yeah.
by that time he was mostly just doing carpentry.
Yeah. That's right. He was.
So, take a chance. This is the one thing I hate about the Hollywood now is they won't take any chances on anything.
Which was part of I think part of the reason for the success of the first Marvel stuff is we were getting
Oh,
people we hadn't heard of before or had not seen very much of. I mean, Chris Evans had been out there, but he was not very high profile. Who'd ever heard of Chris Hemsworth? Some of these people were really good choices.
I'd heard
Um,
of Chris Hemsworth. You want to know why?
why?
My son was watching the Disney Channel, and at the time, Miley Cyrus was dating Liam Hemsworth, his little brother.
Right. Who was the one who was supposedly going to be the big famous one? And
He was supposed to be the big star.
yeah, I mean, he's had a perfectly good high profile Hollywood career, but
Yeah,
still.
but yeah, he's not, you know.
And he was in the running for Thor.
I know. The funniest thing I think is that Tom Hiddleston originally auditioned for Thor.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go online, you can see the audition.
No, that's funny, as they say.
Anyway,
Well, I think we're pretty good here. We've
yeah,
done,
I think we've covered the whole subject. And I'm sure there are other things that, that are out there that haven't been done. I mean, I know there's supposed to be a Call of Duty movie, and
Mhm.
that's been going for a while now, but never, ever, ever gotten anywhere. But I think video game adaptations aren't very good.
Well, they have finally, there's a curse for you. The curse of the video game adaptation, which
Ooh,
has finally been broken in the last few years, though, with like, what really jumps to mind, of course, is The Last of Us. Um,
yeah. I
so
mean,
that curse was finally broken, but it took decades. It took
sure,
decades.
but how much? Okay, really, really, honestly, The Last of Us video game is as cinematic as video games get.
Oh, it's definitely one of those kind of movies or
So
games,
so
for sure.
so to go from that
Hmm.
to a film adaptation is not very hard to do. It's just
Right,
not.
right. And
Uh,
those are the ones that Hollywood should be looking towards. I mean, they're making a ton of money, I think, off of the Minecraft movie, but
oh, good God, yes.
uh,
Yeah. Well, and you know why that is, right?
but because it's Minecraft and Jack Black
And Jack
needed
Black.
work. Yeah, his star's been a little on the decline lately, but this will bump it right back up
Oh
there.
no, he's right back up at the top now. And honestly, I think it's rehabilitated Jason Momoa a little bit too.
Oh, he had Dune under his belt though.
Yeah, he did, but how long is he in Dune?
He's he was a memorable character
Yeah, he
and
was. You're
and
right,
he
but
comes back. I mean,
yeah, I know.
does
I
he
know.
come back in Dune Messiah or Children of Dune? He comes back in Dune Messiah.
Yeah, he comes back in Dune Messiah.
Yeah, so we'll see
Um,
more of him.
but I'm telling you who carried that movie better than anybody, and that was Timothy Chalamet. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How is that guy that good?
That guy's legit for sure.
Yeah, he is the real deal,
Yeah.
and he's ambitious. He is not messing around. I like him. I think he's great. I saw the Bob Dylan movie,
Mhm.
a Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
He was terrific in the Wonka movie. He is
Hmm.
terrific in that movie.
Yeah. He's the real deal for sure.
Yeah, he is, and he's extremely versatile. He can play just about anything.
Hmm.
When he gets a little older, there's going to be no stopping him, and it's all it is at that point is it's I don't think it's not really a maturity thing. I think in his career he's super mature, but it's his looks.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah, they
he's
don't hurt.
well, no, what I'm saying is to get the really deep, meaty roles, he's going to have to look a little more grizzled, a little more
Oh, I thought you
world.
meant the work he was getting now. Oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, he'll grow into him.
Oh, that and he definitely will grow into it.
Hmm.
As he physically matures, he's going to start getting the big time leading man roles.
Hmm.
He really is. I mean, that guy, he, he's just got there's no limit for him. There really isn't.
Yeah, hope
Besides,
so.
he's got that name that sounds like Adam Sandler would say it. Google that.
Okay, I will.
Google Adam Sandler Chalamet and look for a video of it. It's hilarious.
I will do that. All right. And on
All
that
right.
note, I think we're probably out of here.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, and
Uh,
we'll see you next time.